I'm ready.
Okay, so we will please take the roll to return to open session.
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderpersons Borneman,
Here.
Monroe is absent. Ross,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Busker,
Here.
Shadle,
Here.
Misick,
Here.
Barr,
Here.
Stiekel, Hughes, and Moyer.
Okay, item number 7 is out of executive session. The recommendation on the appointment is by the determination of the Executive City Manager Recruitment Committee that the recommendation of the appointment for city manager be Rob Boyer. Is there such a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Barr. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Borneman,
Abstain.
Ross.
Here.
This is a yes or no vote.
Oh, no.
No for city manager.
Yes.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Misick,
Aye.
Barr.
Aye.
The vote is 5-1 to 1 abstention. Motion passes.
And item number 8 is adjournment. Is there such a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Barr to adjourn this special meeting. So we will now resume in about 5 minutes, give you a moment to gather your thoughts, and then we'll begin with the city council meeting. Sorry for the slight delay. Justin Coverstone, are you in the audience? Or someone else that was designated for the prayer tonight? I'm not sure. Okay, maybe he just hasn't come yet, so I apologize. Madam Clerk, since it is 6:21, could you please call to order this special meeting? Take the roll.
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderpersons Borneman,
Here.
Monroe is absent, Ross,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Busker,
Here.
Shadle,
Here.
Misick,
Here.
and Barr.
Here.
Thank you. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Alderman Borneman.
Tommy, if you want to take the lead for us.
Okay, item number 1 is approval of the agenda. Is there such a motion?
So moved. Second.
A motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Ross. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Item number 2 is public comments. And I'm just going to try to figure out what all these readings are on these, so bear with me if I mispronounce your name. I'm sorry. We have a couple that are not pertaining to agenda items, so we will move on past those. So I believe the first one would be George Beard. George? Thank you. If you want to come to the podium, then you can have 3 minutes, George.
I'm George Beard from the 5th Ward, and it's my understanding that you're intending or proposing to raise our water bill rate by $20 a month. Am I right? From what I've heard, this is what the water sewer.
There is an item on the agenda for this evening, yes.
Well, I've discussed it on 2 points. Number one, until 10 o'clock this morning, I knew nothing of an intended rate height, which really disgusts me. And number 2, I'm an old man on nothing but Social Security. My water bill is so high now I can barely pay it. Another $20 is, when is government, whether it's local, state, or federal, going to get with it and realize you can't spend money you don't have? I can't do that. What makes you or any government body better than me, that you can spend a bunch of money that you don't have, but then put it on us taxpayers to pay for it? I'm really getting fed up with it. My comment on it.
Thank you, George. Amy Atkins?
Name again?
Amy Atkins?
Or 55 million, if we get the 5 million.
Hi. I guess my question is pretty much what his is. Like, what? I guess I'm wondering what this water treatment thing, like, do we need it? What's it for? Why is other stuff? How come the streets are all torn up? There's gravel all over the place, but then we're getting a new $60 million water treatment thing. Like, I use, again, like, I'm kind of with him. I live by myself. I do 1 load of laundry every 2 months. My washing machine is huge. Like, I take my garbage to the street like once every 3 months. And my water bill is a fortune. Like, why? A lot of times it's higher than my lights and my gas put together. That makes no sense. I'm just not understanding what this treatment plant thing is and what all the streets are torn up for. I don't know, because there's like gravel all down my street. Like, I don't know if it's fixing water something, but I've lived where I live at now for 8 years. I've had 2 floods, My basement was destroyed, filled with, pardon my French, but filled with shit water. I don't know if this plant is gonna fix that. If it does, cool, but if it's not, like, I just have a lot of questions that I'm not understanding. It's not adding up, so. Thank you.
We don't normally have dialogue back and forth, but all I want to say to that is I invite you to stay for the presentation, and maybe some of your questions will be answered. Wendy Pearson? Wendy, I know that you had signed up for several things. If you could just stick to the agenda items, that would be appreciated.
Right now, we're talking about reclamation. Is that correct? What? Correct? Yes, reclamation. My first question is simply this. How does my bill state that my actual water usage is $7.85, and my bill itself is $87? My bill runs between $87 and $120 every month. I'm one person, and unlike this young lady, I don't wash. My clothes are in the cleaners. Secondly, how are you going to tear down a complete facility on the east side of town and build it in the same area, in a floodplain and a flood zone, where individuals have been forced out of their homes, businesses have been shut down, schools have been closed? I want to know if you've done a soil treatment or a soil evaluation to determine if the weight of that building will sustain on the east side of town. $43 million in a revolving loan that we're paying for, and yes, a necessity, but at the same time, what peed me off the most in 2 weeks ago's meeting was the simple fact that I stood here and I listened to Fergram tell us how many people are paying their bills and how many people aren't, and that we, the taxpayers, would be responsible for the paying of individuals' bills who do not pay. Same thing you guys try to do to the landlords, you're trying to do to us as taxpayers. It is utterly ridiculous that you're increasing water bills, and then you're talking about bringing in a city manager without the approval of the people, nor with the approval of the previous city council, or with the approval of the previous city council, which is you guys, prior to a new city council being elected in. The people have spoke. It is time for you to release your reins on this city and our pockets.
Larry Sanders, you didn't write anything next to it? Okay. And I believe the next one says Joe Shelton. You didn't write anything next to it either? And I might be not saying the name correctly. I can't read it. Are you Joe? Okay. And are you going to, do you want to address something on the agenda? Yes, ma'am. All right. Yeah, now is the time. You have 3 minutes for agenda items. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Albert Shelton. I stay in the 3rd Ward. I represent my 3rd Ward all day long, all night. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I respect all my veterans down and about Freeport. But the way your parliament is doing the vets around here, it's ridiculous. The veterans don't even have a place to stay. But y'all run the government. But every seat that y'all set is supposed to be integrity. I come from a seat of integrity. I'm a Vietnam veteran. So think about it when you wake up in the morning. What about the vets? You can have some vets around here to do contracts. Mr. Ross, I don't have nothing personal against you, but you wasn't doing your job. I don't have nothing personal against you, Mr. Douglas, but you're not doing your job. If If you're gonna stand up, you might as well stand up. The poor white suffer, the poor black suffer. Madam Mayor, that's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Cecilia, Stacy, you didn't write anything down. Was there something on the agenda?
I would like to speak. I am Cecilia Stacy, Alderman-elect of the 5th Ward. Your letters and words of encouragement would make one feel wanted. Do I stand here today feeling wanted, accepted, welcomed by you, the City Council, City Manager, you, City Mayor Jody Miller? No, I do not. Your action speaks louder than your words. The entire city of Freeport voted Joyce Sellers. The other 4 aldermen-elects was chosen by their ward. A monumental election, if you will. April the 4th, 2023, history was made in the city of Freeport. I ask you today to put a stop to this train and wait for the new council to be seated. The things, the issues, the contracts you continue to push through is an injustice to the people. Realize you are denying the voice of the people. To the people, May 15th, we will be seated at the table, and we will have a voice that will be underhandedly denied no longer. In closing, I say, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. Help me, help us.
Frankie McGee, you didn't write down what you wanted to speak on. Is it an agenda item?
Wow. I just want to say, when I got home today from work, I read this, a special Freeport City Council meeting tonight. They are not waiting for the new council member to be seated. That, to me, is a question. Why aren't we waiting for the new city council to be seated? What's so special about this tonight that we can't wait? What's the rush? My second thing is, piggybacking off of a lot of people, this $20 on this water bill, why is it, I'm a North Carolina girl, but I've been in Freeport now in about 30 years, but ever since I've been here, all I've been seeing is, well, actually, I talked to some of the water people. I said, water bill go up? Yes, it did. But they're not going up anymore. They're not going to go up for the next 2 years. So 2 months go by, water bill went up. Why is it that our water, if our water keep going up, we ain't going to be able to drink no water. Well, I don't drink this water anyways. No offense. But those are my 2 questions. And you know what? Freeport, you're hitting us hard. And then you say, bring that money to Freeport, spend it in the local town. I spend all my money outside of Freeport because Freeport is ripping us off.
Next on the list is George Gulrep.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, citizens. It's nice to see a large crowd here the last couple meetings. It's pretty impressive that people will come up and voice their opinions. I'm not here to voice my opinion about the City Council voting on the city managers tonight or laying it over until the next council comes in. What I'd like to say is something probably completely the opposite that I talked about 15 years ago. I was not a big fan of the city manager at that time. Since then, I've worked with probably 30 city managers from DuPage County, DeKalb, Sycamore, Roscoe, McChesney Park, and now Freeport. I've worked with the deputy city manager, who's also the public works director, Rob Boyer. I've been very impressed by his commitment to the city, how things were getting done. We had a lot of problems downtown with ComEd utility poles, but I'm not here speaking on ComEd. I'm speaking only as a citizen of Freeport. But it was a pleasure to work between Rob Boyer and Darren Steekel with Fair Graham and the city council to make sure things were done quickly and correctly. And that's the most important part, is having a city manager that can recognize the situation, evaluate it, bring in the people that he needs to bring in to make sure that the knowledge factor is there and get things done right the first time, not going back in 2 or 3 different times. So that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Christopher Darnell. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Did you want to speak?
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I would like to say that in regards to the water bill hike, the city of Freeport has suffered immensely for decades. I'm 61 years old. I live at 1226 South Homestead Avenue. Only been here 2 years, but I've educated myself and I do a lot of reading. My comment is the water treatment plant, the quality of the water, the sewage, the streets and sanitation has been something that has been a long time coming. Andrew Chesney, I've written to this man, and our own Madam Mayor has endorsed him back in 2018. And I'm going to keep on pounding on his door until he himself rises to the occasion. Supposedly he lives in Freeport, but I don't really think he does. It is something very important to me that the city, with the $5 million forgiveness that they're going to get, is crucial. So now, being that it's only been 4 decades since this water treatment plant, the sewers, getting rid of the lead piping that they have to do first underground before they repave the streets and everything else, has been absolutely appalling. Until Madam Mayor Miller and apparently Chesney, that was the city manager, that did what? I don't think he did much of anything other than his own tap on his back of, look at me, right? But actions speak louder than words. Furthermore, regardless of who deservedly wins the city manager, I certainly hope and pray that whoever it is, other than Rob Boyer, works in tandem with the city of Freeport, because Rob Boyer wears the city of Freeport on his sleeve, number one. Number two, he and all his constituents and the city council here, I know there's
Christopher, your time is up.
I know there's some going out, but I just hope and pray that I don't have to move from Freeport. Thank you.
And then last that's written says Joe, starts with a TH, but it's kind of scribbled out. Okay, yes, sir. Huh?
Good evening to everyone. My name is Joe Threadgill. I live at 904 West Empire here in Freeport. I've been in Freeport, living in Freeport for about 58 years now. I drive for Preston City Area Transit. Prior to that, I'd driven for the senior transportation before Preston City came on board in 2009. I like living here in Freeport, and on these streets every day. And I'm not talking too much concerning the water bill, you know, but I am concerned about the streets. You know, every street you get on is bad. Now, like I say, I've been driving for Preston City and senior transportation, and I be on by every street in Freeport every day. And the street is so bad, I find myself driving on the wrong side of the street. Because if I hit if I try to dodge one pothole, then I fall off in another. Actually, they are not potholes anymore. They're ditches, that you run off into, And the streets is really bad. They are bad. Now if I hit a ditch and I do something to my wheel or bend a wheel or something like that, then who shall I ask for? The mayor? Or who shall I ask for? The streets is bad. They are terrible. And that's the only complaint that I have. I don't like complaining, but that's the only complaint that I have, that we need to do something pertaining to our streets. And that's what I would like to say. And then I'll be sitting back and I'll be waiting for an answer. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Mr. Sanders, did you decide you wanted to speak on an agenda item? Okay, please, to the podium.
Sat there and got stiff. Can't hardly move. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. My name is Larry Sanders, running for 7th Ward Alderman. And I hear this topic all the time. And how did we get to this point? We have not defined how our city roads and streets got to this point. Well, we have to back up a couple of decades, maybe about 30, 40 years. The problem is not the flooding that is causing the problem here in the city. The problem is that the history got buried about why we're consuming so much water and backups and floodings and street caving in and things of that nature. We have to understand this history was in the making for decades. We had an agenda about fixing these problems, but it became too expensive for the city administrators, not saying this administrator, but before now, that it took minds to come up with the solution of dredging the river. And if anybody know about dredging the river, you understand you'll create more space, more water can be consumed or dumped in, but nobody attacked the main problem. This backup is happening because of a reason. And we're not talking about that so we can get a resolution on how to solve it. But that had already been done 40, 50 years ago. And the thing that gets me is when the administration was in charge at that time, knew what how much money that was going to have to take to invest into it. Every year it takes grants to try to solve the problems of water and sewer. But the problem was at the river. That's where the problem was. Nobody had an idea, even the engineers, Fair Graham and all of these consultants did not tackle the problem that was at hand. And so if they started the dredging that's filtering all the silk and things like that, that's overloading the rivers, the Pecatonica, right at the treatment plant, then we'll be a lot ahead if we had continued 40 years ago during the process of trying to get a resolution for the sewer, for the treatment plant. So the problem does not start at the treatment plant. The problem starts right at the river of northern states dumping into our river flow. And then by the time it gets to Freeport, it's already maximized. And so the thing is, let's back up, let's slow this thing down and really attack the problem, because the next time this happens, we'll be recycling ourselves all over again and never touching the core of what the problem is. They knew about it for many years, but yet never.
Mr. Sanders.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's what I wanted to get off my chest right now.
And that concludes the public comments on agenda items. We will move on to item number 3, which is a proclamation. So Ashley, if you could join me. Ashley, it's a pleasure to be able to read this proclamation on behalf of the City of Freeport. Whereas libraries provide the opportunity for everyone to pursue their passions and engage in lifelong learning, allowing them to live their best life. Whereas libraries have long served as trusted institutions for all members of the community without discrimination. And whereas libraries strive to develop and maintain programs and collections that are as diverse as the population they serve and ensure equity of access for all. And whereas libraries adapt to the ever-changing needs of their community, continually expanding their collections, services, and partnerships. And whereas libraries play a crucial role in the economic vitality of the communities by providing internet and technology access, literacy skills, and support for job seekers, small businesses, and entrepreneurs. And whereas libraries are accessible and inclusive places that promote a sense of local connection, advancing understanding, civil engagement, and shared community goals. And whereas libraries are cornerstones of democracy, promoting the free exchange of information and ideas for all. And whereas libraries, librarians, and library workers are joining the library supporters and advocates across the nation to celebrate National Library Week, now therefore be it resolved that I, Jody Miller, promote and proclaim National Library Week, April 23rd through the 29th, 2023. And during this week, I encourage all of our residents to visit our Freeport Public Library to explore the wealth of resources available. Thank you, Ashley. And you are welcome to share anything you'd like.
I just want to say thank you all for coming out to celebrate libraries this week, but also we cannot do everything that we do without the dedicated team that we have at the library. They're very passionate about what they do and making sure that there are no barriers for everyone in the community to be able to have access to information. And so I invite you to come to the library, not just this week, but anytime, to thank your library team for everything that they do for the community. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Item number 4 is the adoption of Resolution 2023-33. Madam Clerk, could you please read this?
Resolution approving appointment of city manager.
It is the determination of the Executive City Manager Recruitment Committee that the recommendation of the appointment for city manager be Rob Boyer, subject to the modification of contract effective immediately. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Parker. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Borneman,
Abstain.
Ross,
No.
Parker,
Yes.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Mysick,
Aye.
and Barr.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted, 5 yea, 1 no, and 1 abstention.
Thank you. Item number 5 is the second reading of ordinance 2023-23. Could you please read this?
Ordinance amending the zoning classification of property commonly known as 1201 West Empire Street, a former R6, which was multifamily residential, to P1 professional use.
Not sure who wanted to take the lead on this. Was this you, Alderman Borneman, or Director Duckman?
Mr. Duckman probably knows what's going on pretty
Okay.
well.
Thank you, Alderman Boardman and Madam Mayor. CFAB Holdings LLC submitted an application on March 7th for a zoning map amendment for their property at 1201 West Empire. And this property is currently zoned R6, the General Residence District, and they are wanting to rezone to the P1 Professional Use District. Not much has changed. This is the second reading of this ordinance, and not much has changed here. Actually, nothing has changed here. But I will just read for the record that this zoning map amendment was recommended for approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals on April 6, 2023, with a vote of 6 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. And on April 13th, 2023, the Planning Commission also recommended approval of the petitioner's request by a vote of 6 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. And in line with the Zoning Board of Appeals and Planning Commission, staff recommends approval of this ordinance.
Alderman Borneman or Busker, did either one of you want to add to that?
No, this was up last week. Mr. Busker made a motion to suspend the rules, and that was voted down, and I followed up. Well, then at the end of the meeting, I think like the applicant or the person behind the permit made a comment stating about how that the time was of the essence, and the sooner this gets changed, the sooner the business or the building can potentially be put to use. So that's why we asked that it be put on tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this ordinance? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, is there something?
No.
Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Borneman,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Busker,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Meiseck,
Aye.
and Barr.
Aye.
Motion passes. The ordinance passes 7-0.
Thank you. Could you please read item number 6 motion, please?
Discussion and motion regarding funding structure to amend Chapter 1055, Public Infrastructure Capital Improvement Fund, Section 1055.02, funding to incrementally increase monthly capital improvement surcharge fee.
Thank you. Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. The wastewater treatment plant is facing significant challenges in relation to increased National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit requirements, general operations and maintenance, and safety due to its age, condition, and antiquated process. The current headworks influent capacity, the first step of the treatment process, screening and grit systems are inadequate. Effluent leaks in maintenance areas pose health and safety concerns for our staff. Obsolete laboratory and sample testing equipment, inadequate administration areas, and deficiencies in the electrical system further hinder the utility staff ability to effectively perform and operate the wastewater treatment plant process. In addition to the implementation of new discharge limits, such as the elimination of chlorine disinfection byproducts, requires addition of UV disinfection as per the NPDES permit as formerly mentioned. Addressing these challenges and making necessary improvements in various areas of the wastewater plant is crucial to ensuring compliance with environmental regulations and maintain continuity of operations at the wastewater treatment plant. The proposed Phase 1 plant upgrades are needed for the wastewater treatment plant system to comply with the NPDES permit, special conditions, and local limit requirements. These include the installation of a headworks facility for debris screening and grit management, a chemically enhanced primary treatment SEPT system to increase stormwater handling capacity, UV disinfection for environmentally friendly discharge, and a non-potable wash water system for reclaimed water use. Facility system redundancy, updates to lab and administration facilities, and the electrical and generator system upgrades are also necessary. A SCADA utility control center is required to effectively monitor and control the project. Sets the stage for also the Phase 2 upgrades for phosphorus removal, solids handling, and digester systems replacement. The Phase 1 project is expected to cost up to $60 million over a 3-year period. We currently have a loan commitment with the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency for $27 million that will need to be increased. As with any loan, the money plus interest has to be paid back We also need funds for cash flow as our monthly bills will run between $2 and $5 million each month. In the past, we have used our capital improvement charge on our utility bills to pay for these types of improvements and pay back the IEPA loans. Using the CIP funds is the preferred method of the IEPA, and they can easily track income to pay the debt. Based on a 3-year construction period, we are estimating our annual repayment schedule, including interest, to be $2,315,000. This includes receiving a $5 million principal forgiveness from the Illinois EPA and 1% hardship interest rates on the total amount borrowed. Using the CIP method and based on about 9,800 paying users, the CIP would have to be increased approximately $20 per month, effective immediately. This $20 increase puts a strain on many household budgets and small businesses. By charging higher wastewater users more than $20 a month will not make a significant imprint on the residential rates. We have 3 customers with 6-inch meters. Charging $100 a month will generate approximately $3,600 per year. We have a total of 22 customers with 3 and 4-inch meters. Charging them $75 per month generates an additional $19,800. We have 120 customers with 2-inch meters. Charging $25 per month would generate $36,000 per year. Charging the remaining 9,655 residential customers $20 per month generates $2,317,200 per year. A second option is to add $1 to the city's portion of the property tax bill. Right now, 100% of the property tax to the city is used to pay the fire and police pension debt and normal pension costs. Based on last year's assessment, the $1 levy would generate $2,400,000. A 50-cent levy would generate $1,204,000, or about 50% of what we need. A problem with the tax levy and the total use charge is there is a tendency to forget how much is being collected for the debt service, as the number can change, and the money may be used for operating or other capital needs. Our current levy under corporate, which means we can use the money any way we want. By moving our current levy obligation back to the police and fire pension funds, we can use the corporate label for the wastewater debt service. In all, every property tax dollar we raise is used for debt service. A third option is to raise the sewer usage rate by approximately 0.3 cents per gallon. This way, those that are using more sewer services are paying more for the service. A person using 4,000 gallons would see a $13.40 increase in their wastewater sewer usage bill. A family of 4 using 7,000 gallons a day would see a $23.45 increase in their sewer bill. Another option is to combine all above alternatives into a debt service repayment schedule. This alternative and those requiring user charges is not preferred by the IEPA. They want to make sure that the loan repayment and debt service is secured and not dependent on demand. An example as follows: if we have a yearly debt payment of $2,315,000, a CIP charge of $5 for residents would raise approximately $579,300. Commercial users at $15 per month would raise approximately $3,960, and industrial users at $25 would raise $900 a month. Subtotal of that is $584,160. The tax levy at 50 cents per $100 in assessed value would raise $1,204,000. User fees at 0.7 cents per gallon increase would raise $526,840 for a grand total of $2,315,000. Using the above scenario, a person using 4,000 gallons per month will see a $3.04 increase in their sewer usage charge. A family using 7,000 gallons would see a $5.32 increase in their sewer usage charge. Recommendation: after reviewing the various options, I am recommending option 1, adding a $100 CIP fee to industrial users with 6-inch meters, $75 to 3 and 4-inch meter users, of $50 to 2-inch meter users, and $20 to less than 2-inch meters. These charges would be placed monthly on the utility bill. The method would make it easier to track the income and would likely be preferred collection method for the Illinois EPA. Staff makes a motion to move this to the next city council meeting for adoption.
Questions? Alderman Borneman?
Mr. Boer, you mentioned the $5 million loan forgiveness from the Illinois EPA. Can you talk more about that? Is there any restrictions on that, or are we guaranteed this money? Or?
So we're number one priority in the state of Illinois to have this wastewater treatment plant upgrade. This was due to the number of combined service overflows that we've had over the years, where when we get a heavy rain, the interceptor is pumped directly to the river, putting essentially what is raw effluent into the river untreated. So it is the number one priority in the state of Illinois, and that has opened up $5 million in forgivable loan funds for the project.
Sure.
Is there any deadline by which we have to take advantage of this forgivable loan?
Well, we've been pushing the deadline for a number of weeks now, where we need to get a commitment on the bid for sure, and then we'll figure out what to do moving forward on the payment schedule. But we do need to move forward with a commitment. Otherwise, the EPA has a number of high priority projects that they're willing to disperse these funds to other communities that are in equal need.
Go ahead.
Okay, so let's break this down a little. You went over it, but let's explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. There's a $60 million project that we would need to repay over 3 years.
Over 30 years.
30 years, okay. Missed an O there. So the project for the first phase is $60 million that would need to be, and the loan agreement is at 1% interest through the IEPA?
Yes, sir.
So is that at risk of any deadline, or are we guaranteed that if it's that 1%?
I believe we get the hardship rate due to our economic capacity, but I've got some information here. Darren, would you go ahead?
So it's a good question. We are guaranteed the forgiveness if we approve this project now during the cycle. We are not guaranteed it if we push. The 1% hardship rate, we also negotiated based on Freeport's low to moderate income. That is not available for most people. I think the standard interest rate right now is about 2.5% for normal wastewater loans. And we also got the 30-year term because of the economic conditions of Freeport as well. That's not a guarantee for most projects, but due to the size of this project, we were able to get that. So in essence, that's the maximum that EPA will allow towards any project, and we've got all three of them.
So the maximum is, because he said there was a $27 million agreement that we need to amend?
Correct.
Amend to what?
To the 60 million, it's the debt ordinance, right? So we need to approve that we can have the borrowing power to capture the funds from EPA. They have 66 million reserved for this project. But as Rob stated, we are in a long list of people and communities that have needs. So their fiscal year ends here in the end of June, so they need to disperse all the money they have left to projects. So we're right now committed. If we don't move forward with this project, they are going to give the funds to someone else. That's the way it works. They have a long list. I think in the presentation we showed they have a demand of $1.6 billion in projects and only $350 million in funding. We've been able to reserve this because of our status as the #1 project on the intended funding list, but there's no guarantee that we will be in that position after the fiscal year change because it goes based on a scoring criteria.
Okay, you said we could lose this if we don't move forward with the project. What do you mean by move forward?
If we don't approve the bid, we will, in essence, be telling EPA that we don't want to move forward with the project, which means that they will go to their next rankings of projects.
Go ahead.
So they will essentially disperse the money between other communities.
And when you say if we don't approve the bid, do you mean you're saying at this very meeting if it's not approved? Or
Correct.
you're saying it before the end of June, which is the end of their fiscal
No, they have to disperse the money by the end of June, so they need to move forward with the amounts. We've been able to delay the process here for a couple meetings to try to educate. That's why we did the presentation. But they will move forward with other communities because they're basically down to their deadline to be able to disperse funds and issue loans.
And this information, I mean, is this something that's been provided to you kind of through conversations? Has there been a formal deadline presented to the city about this? Or are you just saying this is how?
This is what our communication is with the EPA on the loan process, so it's very transparent with them. We've been the intended number one project for the last 2 years. So again, this project has been in process since 2014 originally, and then the facility plan was approved in 2017. So we've delayed as long as possible to meet the 2025 NPDES permit guidelines that we know are coming. With the size of the plant and the limited amount of funding Freeport has had to move any projects forward at the plant, we are really at a stopgap here that we know that we will start getting violations. I want to bring this full circle for the council a little bit. This is exactly why we've been talking about local limits, right? This is all part of our NPDES permit, is the local limits, which drives the treatment process. It also ties the grease traps together. It's all matter that ends up down at our treatment plant, so it's all being tied together. So you guys, most of you sitting here, have seen this full circle as we've taken it around with all the different ordinances and treatment processes that we're trying to improve. But honestly, the plant has not been upgraded since the 60s, so we're at a final legs with it. We already have processes at the plant that are currently not working.
All right, just to recap. The thing that we would risk losing is the $5 million in forgivable loans. So from the 60 million, we'd lose 5 million of that.
And you could lose the 1% interest, and you could lose the 30-year term too, because that's only committed for this fiscal year.
Okay. Well, okay.
Does that make sense?
So that's the 1% rate, though. That's likely something that Freeport would be eligible for.
If they have it next year, the guidelines are not out for the next fiscal year.
Are you listening, Eric? Good Lord.
So basically, if we were to not move the project forward, we would go back into a pool of funding candidates to be rescored, and then if a number of projects scored higher than us, then that would be the potential for us to not get the hardship rate, which again, LMI-wise, we would probably qualify for. The 30-year term is something that we requested, so the project would be somewhat affordable, because without that, the rates would likely go to $30 to pay for this project. And then the $5 million there is no guarantee from year to year if there is any forgiveness dollars. So $5 million is the maximum one-time project that's given. And I do remind council that we have been very successful as a community getting forgiveness from the EPA loans and projects. I believe in the last 7-ish years, we've probably gained close to $35 million worth of free funding towards these projects by going through this loan process. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of rate to the users. Another quick statement I'd like to make about the rates. So when we look at our rates, Fairgram and the council should look at them as a whole, but when you really look at our water and sewer rates individually, our water and sewer rate themselves are not extremely large in the community. It's the capital improvement charge to improve the infrastructure is where most of that fee is, and that is driven by ordinance that all that money gets put back into the water mains, sewer mains, treatment plants, water. We're doing many millions of dollars worth of work, and we have been for the last 10 years trying to fix the dated infrastructure in Freeport.
Alderman Barr.
So thank you for the additional information, Mr. Stico. My question, just so I have an understanding, I get the loan agreements and so forth. I mean, those are much smaller scale for my personal self. But you talk about we're on our last leg. What do we risk besides losing the forgiveness, besides the 1%, besides the 30 years? What can you, just so I have some scope or some gauge of the fines, the penalty, whatever we might risk outside of that? I mean, it sounds like we could take our chances on those, we could take our chances if we had to on those agreement pieces, but what outside, is there anything outside of that we would risk?
So the biggest thing that will happen, because obviously you know from being on the council that we've already had issues due to local limits and ordinances and things that we've been improving, right? That's been continuously going on for years. So the biggest, I guess, risk and mitigation is once we lose control of the process, we'll also lose control of the spending. So, which in regards will mean if US EPA steps in because of the non-significant compliance, they will just order the work to be done at whatever cost it is, and that bill will just be transferred to the accounts almost similarly to like a utility type takeover, because that's what happens. We distribute water, it comes back in sewer, we have a responsibility to treat that sewer to environmentally friendly conditions, and currently the Pecatonica River is an impaired stream, and it's been identified impaired, and we are contributing excursions due to the heavy I&I flow that we carry. So every time that we get large storms, we have to contribute raw sewage to the river, which is already to an impaired stream. So we are under the microscope because that is very abnormal for most communities, that they don't just contribute raw waste to the stream.
You're touching on something that I think needs a little further. I'm thinking about Ms. Atkins and her comments of, she uses very little water and takes her garbage out once every couple months. I'm in that same boat that she is. I pay about $80 a month, and I barely use anything. Do I want it to go up to $100 a month? No, of course I don't. But what's the alternative if there is a utility takeover? I think, Manager Boyer, I think you can probably speak to that. What would my bill look like if there was a utility takeover out of our control?
I have a few items I'd like to just kind of preface that with. So, in 2023, this project will only get more expensive. Just like everyone's seen, we've seen cost inflation over the last couple years, but it has been extreme in the water and wastewater utility. We have inflationary pressures pushing things 20 and 30% over what the estimates are. And that will continue, if not accelerate, because of all the wastewater treatment. The state of Illinois is trying to get our wastewater treatment plants fixed and working properly, and we get a C- according to the Association of Civil Engineers as far as our total infrastructure. So that basically means we have a lot of need out there. As far as this, we have also the various other regulations required with BABA, with the Made in America requirements. That's also driving some of these costs, and there's more systems out there looking for forgivable loan funds through the Illinois EPA. But just to touch on what Darren Stekel had just mentioned, it's never going to be. We've basically been working on this since 2014. This particular project was held back 2 years because of COVID. Now we're coming out of COVID and we've got good bids. It will never be less expensive than it is right now.
Can you kind of put a dollar amount if there was a utility takeover? Like, what would my bill be?
Okay, well, can you discuss Willow Lake as one of our tangible examples, and I can talk about American Water.
Yeah. I'd prefer not to talk about any communities in whole, but a community near Freeport has had a utility takeover. They sold their utility to or basically had a takeover of it, and their rates are $255 a month for just water and sewer. That does not include garbage. Have to remember our water bills include our garbage, which I don't remember the exact number, but that's about $25 of our bill monthly, I believe. So when a utility takeover happens, it's automatic that they're for profit. Remember, as we own the utility, we're an enterprise, so we are not for profit. We are here to just provide the service and provide the basic means of replacement. So operationally, the cities have a requirement to give operation, maintenance, and replacement cost as part of their rate. it appears that for years that's probably been lacking. And if you look at your own utility bills, I like to use this analogy. If we took the water bill and we cut it into the 4 or 5 bills that are really on that, you have water, you have sewer, you have garbage, and you have a storm fee. So if we actually took that bill and cut it into sections, and then you laid it out in all the bills you have every month, because we're combining those bills, but they're all separate utilities, just like NICOR and ComEd and all these things. So if I did that, everybody's cheapest bill every month would be storm, because storm fee is about $4 a month. Water would be similar. It would be one of our cheapest bills. Sewer would be a little bit more, and it's obviously going to go up, but the water treatment plant is the most expensive project in any community. It's the largest facility. You have to remember, we have to clean the waste to a drinkable level to release it to the stream. That is our responsibility, to be environmentally friendly. And then, of course, what I'd like to preface by is water and sewer come and go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at your convenience to your house. If you break down some of your bills, your garbage comes once a week. It's a very expensive item to get rid of our garbage in comparison to a utility that has to deliver service all the time. When there's breaks, our crews are out, or we have to hire somebody. Utilities are expensive operations to run, and what's happened throughout the course of time is utilities have not kept up with the rate of inflation to maintain and sustain the utilities, because they've been trying to be as generous as possible to the constituents, but we're at a breaking point here that utilities, infrastructure is at an all-time low, and repair costs are very high.
So in other words, what you just told me is that if there's a $20 increase, my bill is going to be increased to $100. If there was a potential utility takeover, in comparison to a neighboring community, it would be well over $250.
Yes, sir, ma'am. Not immediate, but it would be.
Is there any other questions?
Did you want to?
And I'd like to just add to that, some of the commercial water wastewater operators, once that system goes into some type of receivership because they're not able to meet their IEPA requirements, that then opens them up for sale. And the system can be sold to a private operator. And one of the criteria there is the private operator would come in, evaluate it, and then go to the Illinois Commerce Commission, put together a rate case, and just start increasing the rates to compensate for not only their out-of-pocket expenses to rebuild the process, but also whatever their investment would likely be. So you would not only be paying for the upgrades to the plant, but you would likely pay for their risk of capital or profit. So that's all I have.
So are you looking for a motion on option 1? Is that what your request is?
I believe we're going to move it to the next meeting for approval.
Okay, so you don't need a motion on this
No.
top? Okay. So are there, Alderman Borneman?
Madam Clerk,
Go ahead, Madam Clerk. So I think we were looking for a motion just to get the consensus of the council to know which option they wanted to go with. And then that way, we would be able to prepare the necessary documents for the next meeting there, so.
Alderman Borneman?
So in your memo, we're talking about the actual how this is going to get paid for. One of the options, you had 3 options. One was to increase rates, or the CIP, to $20 to residential households, and it would be more for commercial and industrial users. The other one was to just increase property taxes. And then another was increase sewer usage rates, which would eventually pretty much be the same $20 increase as the CIP is how you explained it. And the third is like a combination of all 3. Now, you said the IEPA, and I understand they like to have, when they're loaning money, they want to know that they're going to get their money back. So they want us to do it via the $20 increase. They're also the people who are requiring us to go through the process of building a $60 million facility. So at this point, I don't care what the IEPA wants. If we're really moving forward with this project at their request, because I think a lot of people don't realize it, but local municipalities, you know, you blame the city council for a lot of things, but at the end of the day, the city council only has so much discretion and things they can control, and a lot of times the IEPA shows up and says, hey, you have to do this, or you will get fined, you will pay fees, or, you know, this doomsday situation, which I think is probably, I don't think we're as close as you guys are making it out to be, but I don't want to see that happen either. So I am not signing off, and I don't think anybody on this room would like to sign off on a $20 CIP increase, but I, for one, I'm not doing that. If there's options to do it in a kind of a more fair way, because there are concerns. I mean, I'm sure we all have gotten calls, but $20 it's too much to some people. And I could get by with $20, sure, but the person who called me this afternoon, who's on a fixed income and lives in a senior kind of neighborhood, where she can't. So is there a way we can do this where we combine these? So I understand no matter what, it's our money. The city doesn't have money. It's all tax dollars. It's all people's money. But I guess I would much rather pass this on to the next council, to be honest with you, because this isn't a fun decision to make. None of us are up here excited about adding $20 to the water fee. And, you know, we pass it along to the next council. You have the same decisions as we have right now. You can either do nothing and risk fees, fines, and a takeover, or you can do one of these three options. It's not like we're up here glad about this decision, but this is the reality of the situation when the city of Freeport has gone decades not maintaining its infrastructure. That's why we have the CIP fees, because for years people sat around saying, well, hey, water bill is cheap, you know, everything is good, but, you know, the roads deteriorate. And I hear people complaining about how bad the roads are, but then also complaining about the water bill. And it's like, well, you know, one thing led to another. And at this point, we're past the point of no return. So I'm kind of losing track. I'm covering a lot of things here. But my point is, we have four options, right? We can either do nothing, risk the doomsday scenario. We can do the CIP increase to $20. We can do the property tax increase, which is going to be more, it sounded like more to everybody who has, but so I don't really get how that would be a solution, and then we can do a combination. I think the combination would be the most sense, but also I think the industrial users that kind of led to this problem certainly need to have their rates increased. And I know you guys went through this in a way that, you know, these numbers make sense because you ran them and you didn't just pick them out of a hat. So I'm not going to tell you what I think they should be, but is there a way where we can up the industrial user fees? Because as you will recall, a lot of the issues were the EPA, we got on the EPA's radar was from the problems with the industrial users. So I know I covered a lot there, and that's my thought on it all.
Yeah, Manager Boyer.
Councilman, I just wanted to make one point, which is one of the bigger issues is the combined sewer overflows and the EPA coming down on that end. They don't want to see us or anyone pumping wastewater directly to the river, and I think that's what's really driving the need. It's the amount of inflow and infiltration we have in our collection system that's a large problem, and that's also driving some of this, but it's the age and overall disrepair of the plant.
I could tag on that for a second. So where I can agree with you, Alderman Borman, the issues that are currently at the plant are a combination issues of just flow, period. So the screening removal system and the grit removal system, that's needed for everyone in town. That's not just an industrial thing. Also, the UV disinfection is also a byproduct of all waste that contributes to Freeport. The laboratory is the same way. We are antiquated in our times, and we are going to start costing a lot of money in testing if we don't increase that. And NPDES permit levels are changing everywhere. It's not a unique phenomenon to Freeport. It's happening all over the state. It's going to continue to happen as everybody's being tasked with being more environmentally friendly. This happened about 5 years ago in Wisconsin, maybe even a little bit longer, and has, you know, moved through Wisconsin as well. So I just try to give you some background for why the issues are where they're at.
I'm sorry, Alderman Shadle.
Looking at this, kind of falling back to what Alderman Borneman was talking about, as to which one of these would be the best option in my mind would probably be the raise of the sewer usage fee. In the situation, a couple of people we heard speak earlier, where they're not using much and the $20 would be high, this would come down to the $13 a month for a lesser user. For the more usage, 23. And looking at it on an average, the CIP, $20 a month, when we've got some fees that are going to be barely above and some considerably lower, I think some of that pushes onto the industrial users to make those numbers gel out.
So can I ask real
Alderman
quick,
Barr?
on the comment by Alderman Shadle, Mr. Boyer, can you, or Mr. Stekel, either or, again, kind of hitting on what Alderman Borneman's saying, it says it is not a preferred method of the IPA, but that doesn't mean it would not be acceptable. Is that correct?
Correct. Right, that's why we laid out the options.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, that's why the city manager and public works director laid out the options. Those are the financial options that are available to the city of Freeport to finance this project. I will tell you, we didn't just speak of this, but we do rate studies for many communities, and we also do financing options on many projects. There will not be a better opportunity to finance this project. There's nobody that borrows money better than the EPA does for these types of projects. The reason they do it and the reason they've come up with forgiveness is they know these projects are a very large take on the communities.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Busker?
Mr. Stekel, you might be able to, I don't know if you'd be able to answer this or not, but if we did enter into an agreement with, or approve a bid and enter into an agreement with the EPA, is there any chances in the future that they would come up with other forgiveness programs? You know, they see the work that we're doing and whatnot, that they could at that point forgive some of the principal of this loan in the future?
No, not on this project. On future projects, yes, but not on this specific project. Once the terms are set and the loan signed, then we've already got the maximum for this loan. So they will not make another offer on this project. And in the time that I've been doing this is the largest offer we've had on any one project.
Alderman Borneman?
So what is being asked of the council today? This is a motion, so what do you need to?
So I think ultimately we just need the council consensus through motion as to which funding option is the will of the council. So then we'll move that forward then in a formal document, ordinance, or whatever it is, then at the next council meeting. But I think by making a decision tonight as to which option you're going to choose, that will be enough part and parcel along within the bid approval, if the council approves that, to satisfy the EPA that the city is doing something, so that they will then continue holding that pot of money for the city of Freeport.
I'd motion to move forward with option 3.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay, so on the floor, we have a motion made by Alderman Barr, seconded by Alderman Misick for the option 3. If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
That was Barr and Misick, correct?
That's correct.
Borneman,
Abstain.
Ross?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye.
Shadle?
No.
Misick?
Aye.
Barr?
Aye.
We have 5 in the positive, 1 negative, and 1 abstention, so the motion passes.
Item number 7 is approval of the bid that was opened on April 4th, 2023 for the wastewater treatment plant improvements. Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. As we just discussed, the wastewater treatment plant's in need of renovation and updates to maintain operational reliability and comply with current and future regulations. This includes addressing discharge limits for nitrate phosphorus removal, combined system overflow events, and elimination of disinfection byproducts from entering local receiving streams. Phase 1 of the wastewater treatment plant upgrade, in combination with Fairgram and approved by the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, aims to replace outdated equipment, failing concrete pumps, controls. It also includes renovating the laboratory, control room, administrative areas, while integrating changes to the treatment process to eliminate chlorine disinfection byproducts from plant effluent. The city's been working on this phased approach since 2014. Phase 1 improvements project is the #1 priority in the Illinois EPA and the wastewater funding program, resulting in $5 million in forgivable loans. On April 4th, 2023, the City of Freeport held a bid opening for the Phase 1 wastewater treatment plant facility improvement project. The 2 bids received were from IHC Construction, LLC, and Williams Brothers Construction, Inc. Based on these bids, staff recommends awarding the wastewater treatment plant facility improvement project to IHC Construction, LLC, with a low bid of $53,300,000. Funding for this project is through the Illinois EPA State Revolving Fund Water Pollution Control Program. The city is currently guaranteed the $5 million in principal forgiveness toward the loan in this fiscal year. The total estimated cost of construction and engineering is $58,848,000. Staff requests the acceptance of the approval of IHC LLC's bid in the amount of $53,300,000 for Phase 1 wastewater treatment plant improvements project. Staff also recommends approval of a notice of intent to award based on IEPA loan concurrence to be issued by our engineer, Fairgram. Approval of this ordinance is congruent with Freeport's strategic vision, responsive and efficient government, because it prioritizes maintaining the critical infrastructure that supports community life, health, without protecting the environment.
Discussion?
Motion to approve.
Was that Alderman Shadle? There's a motion on the floor made by Alderman Shadle to approve the bid as stated. Is there a second?
Aye.
Seconded by Alderman Parker. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Borneman,
Abstain.
Ross?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Busker?
No.
Shadle?
Aye.
Misick?
No.
And Barr.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-2. So that increases the ayes to 5 with 2 no votes and 1 abstention, and the motion passes.
And item number 8 is the first reading of ordinance 2023-24. Could you please read this?
Water Pollution Control Supply Loan Program Ordinance authorizing loan agreement, home rule entity, City of Freeport for wastewater treatment plant.
Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. On April 4th, 2023, the City of Freeport held a bid opening for the wastewater treatment plant facility improvement project. As everyone knows, IHC was the winning bidder at $53,300,000. Due to factors such as the need to comply with the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System requirements, inflationary pressures, and changes to the original project scope, the bid price for Phase 1 wastewater treatment plant improvements has exceeded the limit set by the current authorized debt ordinance 2022-16. As a result, it's necessary to obtain additional funds from the Illinois EPA Water Pollution Control Loan Program to finance the planned improvements. To accommodate this, a revision to the existing authorized debt ordinance is required to meet the project's financial requirements. Funding for this project obviously is through the Illinois EPA with $5 million in principal forgiveness, with the total estimated construction engineering of $58,848,000. Staff requests City Council approve Ordinance 2023-24, Water Pollution Control Supply Loan Program, ordinance authorizing loan agreement, home rule entity, City of Freeport wastewater treatment plant in the amount of $60 million. Approval of this ordinance is congruent with Freeport's strategic plan, responsible and efficient government based on that it's prioritizing maintaining the critical infrastructure that supports the community's life and health while protecting the environment.
Discussion? Alderman Borneman?
Yeah, so can you just, in layman's terms, what are we doing here?
Previously, we had increased the limit for borrowing from the revolving fund loan, and we're asking for an increase to fund the currently proposed wastewater treatment plant construction costs.
Follow up?
Sure.
Okay, so this is where we're going to borrow the $60 million?
Yes.
What if they don't agree and we're stuck with $27 million? But they've already agreed to $27 million, right?
Yes, they've approved us up to $66 million.
So we're not concerned about not qualifying for the rest of the money at the 1% interest rate?
No.
Okay.
Motion to move it on.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Parker, to move ordinance 2023-24 onto the next regular meeting. Item number 9 is adoption of resolution 2023-31. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving memorandum of understanding with Stevenson County Collaboration Crisis Response Team.
Thank you. Chief Schenberger?
Thank you. The police department's social worker, Erica Chappell, is applying for a grant to help cover the cost of training to have officers attain the 40-hour crisis intervention team certification, as well to purchase technology to assist with CIT incidents. This MOU is required for the grant to be considered during the application process. The ultimate goal is to form a crisis intervention team in collaboration with the Stevenson County Sheriff's Department that will respond to incidents involving individuals who are going through mental crises, and to eventually develop a post-arrest diversion program and establish a mental health court.
Discussion?
Motion to adopt.
Seconded.
We have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross, to adopt resolution 2023-31. Is there any other discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
I'm so sorry, Mayor. Could you repeat the motion and second?
It was Busker and Ross.
Thank you. Borneman?
Abstain.
Ross?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Busker?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Misick?
Aye.
And Barr.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0 with 1 abstention.
Thank you. Item number 10 is public comments. Are there any public comments this evening? Yes, ma'am.
You see all these people in this audience out here, City Council? They're the reason why some of you aren't sitting in those seats anymore. Some of you are going to come up again for re-election. And we're going to be there getting you out the next seat. I want you to understand something. The scare tactics, they've been going on too long. we're not scared anymore. I think some of you may need to be a little scared when it comes to sitting in those seats and having the respect of this community. We already knew that you were going to do what you wanted to do. Some of you are saying nay. You never said nay before. It's always been yay. So here's what happened. The people said nay. And we're going to say it again. I want to say simply this. Eric, you said something today. You said it wasn't the city council's fault. Well, I'd like to know whose it was, because this has been going on for over 50 years. So whose fault is it if it's not the city council's fault that we're sitting in the positions that we're in, with raggedy streets, with individuals that are contracted out here and decide they want to roll their heavy-duty equipment across our lawns and put indentions in our lawns? With a city that has allowed gravel to be put in holes and not enough to fill them. With a city that when you started tearing up the streets, some of us were affected in our kitchen sinks and in our basements. The potholes that are tearing up people's cars, and we've had this meeting before, and most of you were sitting here when people talked about and brought their bills in from destructions of their car based around holes in our streets. Understand this. We have insurance. This is the only city that I know that will not repair your car after it's been destroyed by damages that they've done in the street, supposedly with repairs. And before I sit down, I want to show you guys something. This is the east side of Freeport in 2002. This is over by the Hancock Bridge. And if you look at this video, you're going to see that there's water being poured into the river, pumped back into the river, in the area where they're talking about putting
Your time is up.
recreation center.
Ms. Pearson, your time is up. Are there any other public comments this evening? If there's no other public comments this evening, Tommy?
I want to tell you, Singerberger's did a good job here at the police department. And Jody Moe, you know my birthday is coming up in June 2nd.
I'm sure we'll remember that in June.
And I'm going to be 60.
That's awesome, Tommy. Thank you for sharing.
And Troy, you do a good job of speaking.
Thank you, sir.
Everything. And Channel 23 does a good job filming people on TV. And Wayne, what about that camera on the bus?
We're working on that, Tommy.
And we're still getting it at IB grocery store, right?
That's right, Tommy.
And Eric, I want to tell you thank you for doing that pledge of allegiance.
Good job, Tommy.
Thank you, Tommy. Are there any other public comments this evening? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please read item number 11, the executive session?
Pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity.
Thank you. Is there a motion to
Oh,
enter into?
I'm sorry. There are two, Mayor. And pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C2, collective negotiating matters between the body and its employees or their representatives or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees.
Thank you. Is there a motion to enter into
moved.
executive?
Second.
A motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Borneman?
No.
Ross?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Busker?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Mysick?
Aye.
And Barr.
Aye.
The motion passes 6-1.
Thank you.
Well, you got